Let's take a look at adding relays to the system. We've got three relay outputs: alarm, relay 1, relay 2. Alarm relay is connected to the same output as the buzzer and the LED. So whenever alarm goes off, that relay point will switch as well. And then we've got two configurable relays. The relays is a positive output. It will switch the power that you feed the unit. So if the input for the unit is 12 volt, then the relay output, those outputs will also be 12 volt. They will also be 12 volt. If you've got a 24 volt system, you're not going to get 12 volt, but you're going to get 24 volts, and you've got to use 24 volt relays. This is a typical relay that you connect to those ports. Internally, this thing's got a small relay. The current is limited to about 1.2 amps. So if you've got something you want to switch that's less than 1.2 amps, then you can switch it. If you want to switch more than 1.2 amps, you first got to put one of these high watt amps relays in between. Let's go look at the app. Here we've got the 4x4 app. Now let's go to the relays menu. Select the relays menu. And there it loads it. The default for relay menu is alarm. First of all, it will trigger on any alarm. Those two relay outputs will follow the alarm and they will go out high. You can also add a timer to it. Say for instance the alarm goes off and you want to wait 10 seconds longer before that relay output goes on. You can set it there, or if you want to wait 20 seconds. And the off position, you're going to usually follow ignition. So when the ignition. So when the vehicle switches off, it's going to switch the relay off as well. You can add a time to that as well. So when the engine goes off, wait another 10 seconds and then you're going to switch it off. The next one, if the relay, you don't want to use the alarm, you can select one of the probes that you connected to the system. Let's for instance select EGT, and let's say, or let's make it water temperature. So if the water temperature goes above 95 degrees and we don't want to add a time to it, and we say water temperature, to switch it off, it must be below let's say 90 degrees. So if you want to connect a fan to the radiator, whenever the water temperature goes above 95 degrees, it will switch on and the fan will run and will cool down, and when the water gets below 90 degrees, you want to switch it off, and we're going to enable repeat to repeat the cycle. So it's going to do it the whole time. Let's take the second probe and let's say we want to build the EGT monitor. We're going to say follow ignition. So when the ignition switch on, we want the diesel pump to switch on and it must run. Okay, follow ignition. And when the vehicle is switched off, we want to look at the EGT and we want to say if EGT, when it goes below say 250 degrees, it must switch the relay port off. If you look at the left, you can see there's a relay on, a relay off. the next one is ignition. So it tells you the ignition should be on for the on condition to happen, or for the off condition, if you want to build a turbo protector, the engine should be off. The first one, we had the water temperature. That should actually, the off position should actually, the ignition switch should still be on if you want to repeat the cycle and switching water temperature. So there's a lot of different probes that you can select. Any one of the values of any one of the probes that you've got installed, you can select and you can specify the value, or you can just add a timer value next to it. So that makes it quite powerful for switching the relays. One other thing, the relays, whenever there's an alarm goes off, when you select one of the probes to connect to the relay, say for instance the EGT monitor that we're using on relay 2, when the unit switches off or the alarm goes on, both the relays will default to an off position. This is a fail-safe. For instance, if you want to keep the motor running and you're in an accident and the alarm goes off for some reason, it will disable the power, or it will switch the relay off and the vehicle will shut down or stop running. So the only case where it's different is when you set it to alarm. When you set it to alarm, it will be off the whole time. Whenever alarm triggers, it will go on. Okay, let's go to the screen again. If we look on the screen, there's two square blocks on the screen. Whenever a relay is on, it's relay 1, relay 2. When the relay switches on, that little block will go green. So you know when the relay is on, and when it turns to white, it's switched off again. That's more or less it for relays.